America is a country that loves what it can see. Skylines, monuments, highways, proud flags snapping in the wind. But the deeper story of the United States is not always carved on stone above ground. Often, it's carved into bedrock below it. Because beneath the deserts, cities, prisons, churches, and crowded government districts, there is another America. One built for war, secrecy, survival, escape, and sometimes shame. Some of these places were designed to protect leaders from nuclear fire. Others were built quietly by ordinary people helping fugitives run toward freedom. Some were swallowed by urban engineering, leaving entire streets sealed under modern sidewalks. Others still function in silence today, sealed behind blast doors, security law, and institutional secrecy. And then, there are underground places that live in the shadow between truth and rumor. Spaces so vast, so hidden, that they become magnets for conspiracy. Whether those stories are real or not, the underground gives them oxygen. Tonight, we're descending into 21 places in US history where secrets still live underground. Some are fully documented Cold War fortresses. Others are forgotten layers of cities. Others are sacred or ancient spaces older than the Republic itself. And all of them prove one thing. America didn't just build upward, it built downward too. The Cold War wasn't just a political conflict, it was a psychological one. By the 1950s, the United States believed nuclear war could erupt without warning. The question wasn't if cities might burn, it was where power would survive afterward. So America dug deep. Fact 1. Cheyenne Mountain Complex, Colorado. In the early 1960s, the US military carved one of the most iconic underground command centers on Earth into Cheyenne Mountain near Colorado Springs. Construction began in 1961 during peak nuclear paranoia, and by 1967 it had become the hardened headquarters for NORAD, the system designed to detect Soviet bombers and missiles. Cheyenne Mountain isn't a bunker in the casual sense. It's a subterranean city buried under about 2,000 feet of granite, protected by massive blast doors weighing more than 20 tons. Inside are 15 spring-mounted buildings designed to float if shockwaves or earthquakes hit. The complex has independent power, water reserves, air filtration systems built for nuclear fallout, and communications shielded against electromagnetic pulse. What makes it haunting isn't just the engineering, it's the mindset. This was built on the assumption that America's surface might be uninhabitable. But the command chain must continue. Even today, Cheyenne Mountain remains operational as a backup defense hub, mostly closed to the public. It's a living relic of an era when the nation believed its last heartbeat might echo from underground. Fact 2. Raven Rock. Site R, Pennsylvania-Maryland border. If Cheyenne Mountain was NORAD's fortress, Raven Rock was the Pentagon's ghost twin. Hidden beneath the Blue Ridge Mountains along the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, Raven Rock Mountain Complex, known as Site R, was built in the early 1950s as an alternate command center for the US military. It was designed around one terrifying possibility. Washington, D.C. could be vaporized in a first strike. If that happened, Raven Rock would become the nerve center of war. A hardened maze of tunnels, communications infrastructure, offices, and living areas that could sustain leadership while the world above collapsed. For decades, even many elected officials didn't know its full scale. Evidence of its role surfaced publicly through declassifications and continuity of government reporting, especially after 9/11, when senior officials were moved to secure sites like Raven Rock. The most unsettling part, the exact layout, capacity, and current operations are still classified. Raven Rock isn't a ruin or tourist site. It is still active, still guarded, still waiting for the day it was built for. Fact 3. The Greenbrier Congressional Bunker, West Virginia. One of America's most elaborate underground secrets wasn't inside a military base. It was under a luxury hotel. Beneath the Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs lies a Cold War bunker codenamed Project Greek Island. Built quietly between 1958 and 1961, it was intended to house the entire US Congress if nuclear war destroyed the Capitol. The facility included dormitories, medical rooms, decontamination showers, a power plant, and even a broadcasting studio. Because the government needed not only to survive, but to speak to a surviving nation. It remained secret for over 30 years. Then in 1992, a Washington Post investigation exposed it, and within a day, the government shut the program down. Today, parts of the bunker are viewable by tour, but the story remains chilling. The United States expected a future where democracy's lawmakers would live underground while the country above burned. The Greenbrier Bunker is proof that Cold War fear wasn't theoretical. It had hallways, steel doors, and beds waiting in silence. War wasn't the only reason America went underground. Sometimes the past was buried simply because cities had no other choice. Floods, fires, and rebuilding projects raised streets and sealed old districts beneath new ones. And under modern sidewalks, you can still find earlier versions of America trapped in brick and darkness. Fact 4. The Seattle Underground, Washington. Seattle's underground wasn't built for secrecy. It was an accident of survival. After the Great Seattle Fire of June 6, 1889 destroyed much of downtown, the city rebuilt on higher ground to solve constant flooding from tidal flats. Engineers raised street levels by 1 to 2 stories, leaving old sidewalks, storefronts, and basements below the new city. What remains is the Seattle Underground, a network of sealed hallways and abandoned commercial spaces once at street level. For decades it sat forgotten, turning into a shadow layer beneath a growing metropolis. Later, rediscovery revealed intact brickwork, glass sidewalks, and ghostly doorways to businesses that died when the city moved upward. Today, parts of it are accessible via tours, but much is still closed due to instability and safety. Seattle above ground may feel modern, but Seattle below is a preserved fossil of urban reinvention, proving that sometimes history is buried not by time, but by engineering decisions made in crisis. Fact 5. Portland's Shanghai Tunnels. Oregon Portland hides a darker underground story. Part truth, part myth. Beneath Old Town Chinatown are real cellar passages and service corridors linked to Portland's riverfront. In the late 1800s, Portland was notorious for Shanghaiing, kidnapping men and forcing them into ship labor. Legend claims these underground tunnels were used to drag drugged victims from saloons and brothels to the waterfront. But historians note there's no strong evidence proving a vast tunnel network was used specifically for kidnapping. The tunnels existed, the crime existed. The exact connection is debated. That tension is why the site matters. Portland's underground represents how cities bury uncomfortable reputations. Whether the tunnels were crime highways or mostly storage routes, they became a symbol of hidden labor exploitation in a booming port city. Today, some sections are toured while others remain sealed, leaving the question alive, half history and half shadow. Fact 6. Old Sacramento Underground, California. Sacramento's buried city was built the hard way, block by block. In the 19th century, Sacramento flooded so often that life downtown became impossible. After devastating floods, especially in the 1860s, the city decided to raise streets by as much as 10 to 15 feet. Entire buildings were lifted with jacks. Ground floors became basements, and old street-level sidewalks were sealed below. This created a hidden underground network of bricked-over doors, staircases descending into darkness, and storefronts that once faced open roads. For more than a century, these spaces sat inaccessible, an abandoned layer of the gold rush era frozen beneath the Capitol. Modern preservation projects and tours reveal just how extreme the solution was. Sacramento literally buried itself to survive, and in doing so, created one of America's clearest underground time capsules. Not all underground history was engineered by governments or city planners. Some was carved by ordinary people risking everything. During slavery, the Underground Railroad was a secret movement of escape. Often, it was underground only in metaphor. But sometimes, in the most dangerous regions, it went literally below ground. Fact 7. John Rankin House, Ripley, Ohio. In Ripley, Ohio, perched above the Ohio River, stands the home of abolitionist minister John Rankin. Built in 1828, it became one of the most important stations on the Underground Railroad. Rankin's house faced Kentucky across the river, slave territory. He famously used a lantern in his window as a guide signal for fugitives crossing at night. Beneath the property and nearby safe houses, cramped cellars and passages hid escapees from slave catchers enforcing the Fugitive Slave Act. Rankin and his family helped hundreds reach freedom. What makes this site powerful is that it wasn't fortified by weapons, but by belief. The tunnels were small, crude, and terrifying to crawl through. But they represented a larger rebellion. People willing to turn their own homes into underground war zones against slavery. Fact 8. First African Baptist Church, Savannah, Georgia. In Savannah, the First African Baptist Church, completed in 1859, hides a subtle coded sanctuary beneath its floorboards. Researchers found ventilation holes drilled into the sanctuary floor in geometric patterns resembling African spiritual symbols, including interpretations tied to the Congo cosmogram. Oral history and church tradition say fugitives hid in a 4-foot crawl space below during Underground Railroad movement along coastal routes. The holes provided air, quiet lifelines for people waiting in darkness while danger passed overhead. This is underground resistance in its purest form. A church above ground preaching liberation, and a church below ground physically sheltering it. The sanctuary is still active today, and the preserved breathing hole floor remains a chilling reminder of the cost of freedom. Fact 9. Owen Lovejoy, Homestead, Princeton, Illinois. The Owen Lovejoy House in Princeton, Illinois, is another confirmed Underground Railroad station. Lovejoy was an abolitionist minister and U.S. congressman who openly defied federal law to shelter fugitives. The homestead contains concealed compartments and a basement refuge used to hide escapees traveling north through Illinois. Lovejoy's stance was public and dangerous. Pro-slavery mobs threatened him repeatedly. Yet he kept operating the station until the Civil War. What's rare here is the merge of ideology and architecture. Many Underground Railroad sites were secret and informal. Lovejoy's home was a deliberate fortress of conscience. Its hiding spaces aren't just historic features. They are physical proof that abolition wasn't only spoken, it was built into walls. Some underground places exist not to escape danger, but to preserve what institutions consider sacred, powerful, or essential for survival. Fact 10. Granite Mountain Records Vault, Utah, near Salt Lake City. The LDS Church carved the Granite Mountain Records Vault 600 feet into solid granite in 1965. The goal was preservation. Genealogical records, microfilms, and historical documents gathered worldwide. The vault is climate-controlled, fireproof, and heavily secured, built to survive floods, war, and time itself. Its collection numbers in the billions of images, birth certificates, parish books, census lists, a global memory bank intended for religious rites tied to ancestry and salvation. Some data is accessible through family search, but the deeper vault system remains restricted. The eerie resonance is obvious. America has a memory fortress underground, designed to outlive the surface world. Fact 11. Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center, Virginia. Hidden in Virginia's Blue Ridge Mountains is Mount Weather, FEMA's high-security continuity of government site. Constructed during the Cold War and still active, it was designed as a relocation center for top civilian leadership after catastrophe. Mount Weather holds communications hubs, housing, power infrastructure, and command space. Its existence was long unacknowledged until leaks and 9/11 reporting revealed its function. During major crises, officials have been moved there to ensure the country could still be governed if Washington fell. The secret here is less the building than the philosophy behind it. The US government assumes collapse is possible, and quietly maintains an underground backup nation to keep authority alive. Fact 12. The U.S. Capitol Underground Tunnel and Subway System, Washington, D.C. Even the symbol of American democracy has an underground shadow. Beneath the U.S. Capitol complex is a network of tunnels and small subway lines built starting in 1909 to connect the Capitol with congressional office buildings. Initially practical, helping lawmakers avoid brutal summer heat and travel quickly during votes, it grew into a labyrinth linking Senate and House buildings, service corridors, and secured passageways. Since 9/11, access tightened sharply. Most visitors never see it, and many areas are restricted to members and staff only. This isn't a doomsday bunker like Cheyenne. It's a quieter kind of underground secrecy. The backstage of power, where deals, movement, and emergency protocols occur away from cameras. The Capitol's public dome may represent openness, but beneath it runs a hidden circulatory system of government. Before the United States existed, underground spaces already shaped life here. Indigenous civilizations used caves and subsurface complexes for ritual, mining, burial, and cosmology. Fact 13. Mammoth Cave. Indigenous mining, Kentucky. Mammoth Cave is the longest known cave system on Earth, stretching more than 400 miles. But its deepest story is older than tourism. Thousands of years ago, native people entered Mammoth Cave to mine gypsum, mirabilite, and other minerals used for ritual or trade. Artifacts remain inside: mussel shell scrapers, torch fragments, footprints, and mining scars, some dating back to around 1200 BCE. The cave's dry, cool environment preserved evidence of an entire underground labor world long before Europeans arrived. The shock here is scale. Mammoth Cave wasn't accidental exploration. It was resource extraction and ceremonial use in pitch darkness. The earth itself held sacred value, and indigenous engineers navigated it with firelight centuries before the US even imagined its borders. Fact 14. Chaco Canyon, subsurface networks, New Mexico. Chaco Canyon, heartland of the ancestral Puebloan world between roughly 850–1250 CE, is famous for its massive above-ground great houses. But research also points to complex subsurface planning. Buried roads, conduits, and hidden architectural alignments detected through surveying and remote sensing. While not all underground features are fully excavated, protected by preservation rules and tribal sovereignty, evidence suggests Chaco's builders used the ground itself to link ceremonial and residential zones, and possibly to manage water and movement in ritual processions. What makes Chaco haunting is uncertainty. The underground here is not a fully mapped place, but an incomplete puzzle. The canyon refuses to reveal everything, and that silence is part of its mystery. Fact 15. Cahokia's subsurface burials, Illinois Cahokia, near modern St. Louis, was once a pre-Columbian metropolis with over 20,000 people around 1100 CE. Its towering mounds are visible above ground. But archaeology revealed a more chilling underground layer. Mound 72 contained over 250–270 burials, including elite interments and mass graves in subsurface pits. Some victims show signs of ritual execution, suggesting underground burial was tied to hierarchy, sacrifice, and cosmology. These chambers weren't hidden secrets in a modern sense. They were power structures. Cahokia's underground is where authority was enforced even after death. The earth here is not just soil. It is a vault of complex civilization and human cost. Conflict produces underground spaces like pressure produces diamonds, because war demands concealment. Fact 16. Fort Pickens Powder Magazines, Florida. Fort Pickens on Santa Rosa Island was a key Civil War coastal fortress. Beneath its thick masonry lie underground powder magazines and ammunition tunnels designed to safely store massive quantities of gunpowder. The magazines were lined with wood to keep powder dry. Soldiers even removed shoes to avoid sparks. The underground design minimized explosion risk and protected supplies from enemy fire. Today, these tunnels remain among the best preserved examples of 19th century military engineering. Fort Pickens shows that in war, survival isn't just about cannons. It's about what you hide beneath the fort. Fact 17. Alcatraz Utility Corridors, California. Beneath Alcatraz's legendary cell blocks is a system of service tunnels and utility corridors, infrastructure left from its earlier military fort era. These forgotten spaces became key to the 1962 escape by Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers. The men widened ventilation ducts behind their sinks, reached an unguarded utility corridor, and climbed through service areas to the roof, vanishing into the night on a homemade raft. Even though authorities officially presumed they drowned, no bodies were recovered, keeping the mystery alive. Alcatraz's underground wasn't built for rebellion, but it enabled it. It remains a reminder that the hidden layers of prisons can become the hidden stages of history. Fact 18. Harper's Ferry. Armory Sublevels, West Virginia. Harper's Ferry is remembered for John Brown's 1859 raid on the Federal Armory. The armory itself included partially subterranean storage areas and basement chambers supporting weapons production and defense. After Brown's raid and later Civil War destruction, much of the complex collapsed or was burned. But archaeological work and NPS studies show subsurface foundations and buried remnants still exist below the ruins, the underground footprints of a site tied to America's march towards civil war. The secret here isn't hidden treasure. It's buried memory, an underground layer of rebellion that helped ignite the nation's most catastrophic conflict. Not every underground American story is fully factual. Some are stories born from silence, scale, and suspicion. But even myths tell us something about the country that created them. Fact 19. The Dulce Base legend, New Mexico, a real myth. Near Dulce, New Mexico, rumors persist of a vast underground base beneath Archuleta Mesa, allegedly shared by the US government and extraterrestrials. This is a conspiracy theory, not verified history. No public evidence confirms the base exists. The legend grew in the late 1970s after UFO researcher Paul Benowitz claimed he intercepted alien signals. Later figures amplified the story with dramatic, unproven testimony. Why include it? Because Dulce shows how underground secrecy breeds mythology. In a landscape full of real military projects and restricted land, the absence of clarity becomes a canvas. Dulce is not proof of aliens, but it is proof that Americans instinctively associate the underground with hidden power, experiments, and forbidden knowledge. Fact 20. Denver International Airport. Underground levels. Colorado. Denver International Airport is real, and so are its underground levels. When it opened in 1995, DIA attempted one of the most ambitious automated baggage systems ever built. The system ran through extensive underground tunnels and service corridors, and it failed spectacularly, causing delays and redesign. The physical scale of those tunnels, combined with surreal murals and public art, sparked conspiracy theories claiming DIA hides secret bunkers for elites or shadow governments. Airport officials deny such claims and even joke about them in marketing. The documented truth is already fascinating. A massive underground logistics world built for futuristic efficiency, then quietly repurposed after failure. The rumors survive because the underground here is both real and enormous, and what people can't access, they tend to imagine. Fact 21. Springfield Underground, Missouri. In Springfield, Missouri, a former limestone mine became a functioning underground industrial city, Springfield Underground. Mining began in the 1940s. By the 1960s, parts of the caverns were repurposed into refrigerated warehouses and secure storage for major companies. This is a living underground economy. Over 2 million square feet of space, naturally kept around 58 degrees Celsius year-round, perfect for food logistics, data storage, and manufacturing. Businesses operate quietly below farmland and highways. Springfield Underground has none of Dulce's mythology, but in some ways it's more unsettling because it's real. a working subterranean district in the American heartland, mostly unknown to the people driving on top of it. Proof that underground America is not only past tense. Sometimes it's happening right now. So what have we really found beneath American soil? Not just bunkers, tunnels, and caves, but intent. Cheyenne Mountain, Raven Rock, and the Greenbrier were built out of nuclear dread to keep power alive after apocalypse. Seattle, Portland, and Sacramento buried their past by necessity, leaving older cities sealed in quiet darkness. The Underground Railroad sites remind us that sometimes the most heroic actions needed secrecy to survive. Mammoth Cave, Chaco, and Cahokia prove that America's underground story began long before the Republic, rooted in indigenous civilizations with their own sacred geographies below ground. Fort Pickens, Alcatraz, and Harper's Ferry show how war and rebellion often unfold in hidden layers. And the modern myths, Dulce and Denver, reveal how silence and scale still feed human curiosity. The underground is where America has stored what it feared, what it valued, and what it tried to forget. And maybe that is why these places hold us so tightly. Because the past doesn't always die. Sometimes it just goes underground.